Hi guys, how's it going? Let's go back to our button settings in our main menu. Okay, we're getting there, aren't we, with this chapter? We're getting close to the end. And as you've seen, it's a long process, but we're nearly there. And hopefully you're starting to understand the concepts involved. Okay, so we've already set up the start, the instructions, the about and exit. Now we're going to set up the resolution buttons together as promised. Okay, so hold tight on this one. It's going to be an enjoyable ride. First thing we need to do is to create the resolution events. Okay, there are three different types, aren't there? Three different types of resolutions, which are high, medium, and low. Okay, so we'll have to create events for each one of them, and then we'll need to activate them through the use of buttons. Okay. So let's do this together. We'll try and keep it, methodical and easy to understand. So we're in our My Menu blueprint here. So let's think about this. What's the process we need to be working with? Well, let's think about the process we developed for changing the resolution. Now, maybe there are more ways to do this. Maybe there are more or different types of resolution that you want, depending on your scene. But the principles that we show should be the same. And then basically to make sure that the resolution is never too heavy for your graphics card. So basically the idea is to have, your maximum that you can cope with, a medium and a low. And these can be set in the post-processing. You can use that post-processing volume to set different parameters to allow for better quality, medium or poor quality, right? So we'll also work with the directional light too in this, because to make it movable requires a lot more general performance. Okay, so we'll have to do two things. I'll create these events here in My Menu blueprint. So we've got some events already here that are generating different things and working with different widgets. So let's add it to this one here. Okay, so it's all connected. And when I include it here, it should work in our scene. Okay, so I'll create a custom event, and I'll name it high resolution. Cool. So here we have the high resolution custom event that's going to be used to trigger our setting. First, we'll work on it in the post-process volume. So to do this, I need to connect to it. So I need to get it and create a reference to it, right? So following the same method of working before, we'll use the get all actors of class node, because it's in the scene already, the post process, isn't it? And here in the class, we can just type in post process. So it's going to get that because we've already got it in our project, in the actual scene itself. So that's what we want. So if you have 3 or 4, you must understand which one it is. Okay, that you want to be using. You can rename the post-process volume to make it easier. But if you've got one, it should be straightforward. Okay, so that's important to know which one you're actually referencing. And it will then generate an array, which is the group that we mentioned earlier. Okay, where you can pull off different references. In our case, we only want to get this one here, and the index is set to 0. Let's promote this to a variable, and we'll name it. And we'll name it post-process ref. Okay. Oh, I think I'm doing it in the wrong place. Let's just do it here for the beginning part. There we go. I just need to get this. Okay, so I get this reference from the beginning of the game. So we don't need to do it several times. We just do it here. Let's name it get process post-process reference. Cool. Okay, so we have the post-process reference now. We've got that from our scene. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is work with the post-process volume itself. So we already have our reference. Let's bring it in. So how do we actually work with it? Well, here's where we introduce you to another node, okay? Because there is a node called set members in post-process settings. And this node is a little bit different from what we've seen before. You probably notice it's dark blue, isn't it? So it has a complete structure to it. It's basically the post process inside the blueprint. So if you click it, you get all these parameters here on the side in the details panel. And I'll show you how you can enable them. But first, let's open this. So here I have the reference to the post process volume, but I can link them here. And then we can see that this here, oh, I can't link it because it's a structure. So I can split pin them, can't I? It's a structural type. So I should be able to right click. It will give me a few more settings. Okay, so here I only have one variable, so it's the post process, but I have a reference to it. So for me to link this, I need to get its settings first of all. So let's do that. Let's look for variables, post process, get settings here. And now we have a structure type, right? So now we can use the structure type to plug into the next node here. Okay, so just important to remember there's little details that might affect us being able to connect things. So our post process is already here. We can access it now. So which parameters are we going to be working on to affect the quality? Well, we can choose two basic parameters to work on to start with, so that we have the different resolutions. We'll work with the intensity of lens bloom, and we'll also work with screen percentage. Okay. So in order to activate these parameters, since this node is a little bit different, if Unreal had to put all the nodes here, it's going to obviously take forever, and it's going to be really long. So, you know, we're going to be talking about loads of different settings. And you probably wouldn't fit all the pins in, would you? So it gives us an option of selecting it. Okay. So what we can do here, for example, if I choose lens bloom, I can check intensity and it shows me the parameter that I want here. See that? So I can work with variables, or I can type in the value here. Okay, so I'll look up screen percentage. It's just a little bit easier if I type it and scroll down all the way. If I spell it right, that is. Okay, screen percentage, there we go. Okay, just look for it, and there we go. There it is. We just enable that. And once we tick it, watch the node. See that? It adds it to it. Okay. So we decided for this one is standard at 100. And we'll work with these values. Okay. So here in the intensity, when we have a high resolution, we'll use 0.3 and a screen percentage of 160. If we've got a medium, I'll work with 0.3 and 100. And if we've got low, I'll work with these values here of 0 and 80. So basically the screen percentage is the resolution percentage. Okay. So for example, here we're working with 160 as the regular setting. Okay. And then we're working with 100 and then 80 for the lowest quality. And it doesn't have any bloom either. Okay. So that's how we're all going to plan to do it. You can change it, of course, but that's what we're going to use for the free options. And if our video card is good enough, this shouldn't be a problem. This should be basic. You can also work with different parameters as well, such as roughness. If you're working with different settings in your post-process volume, you can change the quality of them. I guess if you're using ray tracing, you can search for the different settings in there to use. And tweak the intensity or the quality of them. But screen percentage is a really good way to go. A very simple, basic way to set your different resolution up. Okay. So now that we've got that set, and it's set by, we're working on screen percentage, I can link these nodes together now. Okay. And I'll create another custom event for the other options, such as medium resolution. So I'll link that one. And there we go. Keep it neat. Then we'll do another custom event for low resolution. And then we can connect that as well. There we go. Let's plug this in. Okay, so we've got those linked in. So we've already got our free custom events. So these events should run when we ask it to display a different resolution, and it will affect the settings in the process. Okay. Now, the second thing I need to do that I mentioned to you earlier is to work on our directional light. So the first thing we need to do is get our directional light and get a reference from it, from our scene. Okay, just like we did in the post process, we can get a reference here because we can, get all actors of class and choose the directional light. So we just do that, and we can type in directional light. So this is going to get it because it's in our scene. Cool. And then we just use the same principles before, get a copy. There we go. And it's got an integer value there, and I can promote it to a variable. Cool. And that can be a directional light reference. Okay, so it's a reference to our directional light, and let's just comment on that. We call it get directional light reference. There we go. Nicely done. So we have all the references so far. Now keep in mind that they're all inside event begin play. So when we start the game, we'll get all the references and it will store them here for me. Okay, cool. So let's place our directional light here on the graph. And there's a little thing just to be aware of, a little tip actually. We usually use this in our blueprints, in our menus, which is validating if this directional light exists before we proceed. Okay, for instance, maybe you're working on a night scene. Usually it won't have a directional light, and you get your scene going and you might crash. So there is a way that you can make sure you can avoid any issues with things like that by just validating it. Okay, so there's a node which we can use here, which we can use on many other things, called valid or is valid. And it's a conditional node, as you can see here. It gives you true or false values. So we've got the red Boolean at the end. So it verifies whether this is valid in the scene. Okay, let me give you an example. If it exists in the scene, then yes, it's valid, it's true. If it doesn't exist, it's false. So with this information, we can create branches. So we can create these nodes through these conditionals. If it doesn't exist, it just doesn't do anything. It won't run. Okay, and it helps keep the software from crashing. So what we need to do now is our branch, and I'll get it from here. Okay, there we go, branch. So if I have directional lights in the scene, then I can change the settings. If they don't exist, then don't let me do anything with them. Okay, limit my access completely if it's not there. So for example, set intensity. Okay, so in our case, it's going to create it if it's daytime. If it's a nighttime scene, you wouldn't do it. But in our case, ours is daytime, okay? But this is useful to be able to set it up this way. So it picks up a reference. It's converted it into a light component here. And why is that? Well, in the blueprint, we can only alter a light, which is a component of it. Since it doesn't exist in here, but it's an actor, and that's often used, then there's this preset routine here that we need to use. It converts it to a light component so that we can edit it in our blueprint. Okay, so it verifies it exists. If it does, then we can change the intensity of the light. Okay, cool. So let's get this in the world outliner so we can reference it. And it's this one here, main movable light. So what's the intensity set for our scene? Let's check that. I think it's set to 3. Yes, there you go. So it's set to 3 lux. So I'll type in here 3. It's an average intensity for what's going on in our scene. Cool. There we go. Right. So this is used for high resolution. Now coming back to the branch, true makes it do something, doesn't it? So if there's nothing in the scene, it doesn't do anything. So there'll be no errors. So now all we need to do is do it again for the other resolutions. Let's set it for medium resolution. So in medium resolution, I'll set this to 0. So this means that I'll turn off the directional light and its performance will be improved dramatically. Okay, so we'll have that movable light generating shade in real time on high resolution, but medium, it won't be noticeable. And this branch helps us to do that. So if it's true, it's set at 0. And this last one here is the same. If it's true, because it does exist in a scene, for low resolution, it's going to be set to 0 as well. Okay, so we connect everything up. All right. So we've created the events. It's going to be executed when we click on the different resolutions from our menus. All good so far. And just a bit of tidying up here. So this is all looking pretty good now. I think we're getting close to the end of our menu construction. I just comment this resolution events looks good. Perfect. So we have all our events now. So now what's next? What do we need to do now? Well, we need to make sure that this works in our menu. Okay, so we need to connect the functionality generating these events in our menu next. So let's do that together. I'll show you how that works. So now we're in our menu. So let's find it here. So we have our high resolution button. We're in our menu widget, that is. Okay, so we've got a high resolution button here. And it's a checkbox button, isn't it? Okay, so I can enable or disable these 3 options here. The high, medium, and low. So here in these checkbox buttons, you don't really have a click button, at the bottom like you do with the other buttons, but you can enable it. Okay, so you can check it. So when the state of this parameter changes, so when I change it from not checked to checked, it's going to hopefully trigger the event that we set up. Okay, so we've got it here, this event that's going to pop up on our graph. So when it's checked, it should enable that resolution. Let's place it near the resolution so it makes more sense up here. Cool. So when I check the resolution, it should get it. Okay. So because we made the custom events, we should be able to find the reference, but we'll just need here this variable. I'll execute the high resolution, the call function, and plug that in. We'll do the same for the other 2 checkboxes as well. Let's get the medium. There we go. And the low one whilst we're here. And let's drag them both over to the other side. Cool. Hopefully this is all making sense now. So now we've got the high, medium, and the low on-clicked events. So we'll just do the same, medium resolution, get that custom event and plug them in here. And exactly the same for the low resolution. Okay, pull out and get low function. There we go. Plug that in. And then when I change the parameter, it should change these. All right. Let's just see one more thing. And yeah, let's test it now actually. Okay, so we can click. So it shows a tick in there now, right? Let's say I don't want higher resolution, I want medium, I can do that. But looks like, okay, so it looks like they're all checked. We don't want that, do we? That can't happen because that's just confusing. It has to be one or the other. Okay, so what do we need to do to make sure you can't just select everything? Okay, because we want to be able to change from one to the other when we click. Let's have a look at what we need to do together and see if we can solve this. So if I click medium, what should happen? It should disable this other option automatically, okay? So there is a way to do it in the blueprint. Let me show you that. Let's do this. So I'll drag these here. So we just have a little bit more room in between. And there is a node that is very handy in this situation. And that node is called set checked state. Set checked. Let's try again. Oh, I need to bring that button in first, don't I? There we go. So we need this variable, and we go set checked state. So this is the variable of the button, okay? So medium's the button, set checked state's the node we want, and we can alter that, okay? So I can change it to checked, unchecked, or undetermined, which is for when the parameter is not enabled. So it's shown as disabled in the menus. So what I want to do is when I press the button, check the button on high, I want medium and low to uncheck. Okay, I can't have both of them on, can I? It doesn't make sense. So this is what we'll do. So when I press this button here, this checked button, it's going to check the state and it's going to uncheck medium, right? And then we go to that. And low as well. We can plug low here. Okay, so both buttons should get unchecked at that time. Make sense? Okay, so let's test this, see if it's working. Let's suppose medium resolution is on and I press high. There we go, it unchecked it. Did you see that? Cool. So when I check this, I uncheck this. Nice. So we already have a good starting point here. And I can uncheck the other two the moment I click that one, okay? So I need to do this for the other events as well. Let's plug them in. And this is medium. So the ones to be unchecked are high and low, the other two. Okay, we plug them in. The status needs to be unchecked, which is fine. And the same goes for low resolution. You just copy that. And for low, we'll need to disable high and medium, the alternative options. There we go. So we just have to think this through, don't we, to make sure it's all working properly and what we're telling it to uncheck and whilst we check. Let's test this now. Let's go to the resolution menu. So we checked high, now medium, and high, low, medium, low, high, medium, low, high, medium. Okay, so we can never have multiple options on at one time, right? And it's going to change the resolution of our post-process, screen percentage, and whether the directional light is on or not. Okay, so that's what we need to do for the resolution buttons. So what we've done so far, we've created the resolution events, okay, to make the changes in the post-process and my directional light as well. I've also enabled them here on check. So if I check it, it will run an event, or I can choose whether it's enabled, whether it's checked or unchecked, etc. So I never have more than one option checkable at one time. Nice. Let's name this. And what should we name this? Let's name it resolution check. There we go. Okay, so that's for checking the resolution. Cool. So there's one more thing we need to do, and it's a really important thing. It's an important one so that our playthrough makes sense, okay? And that is this. Because at the moment, there's no possibility for none of them to be working. So one of them will always need to be checked, right? At all times. So I can't not have it where the no resolution shows up. So we have to choose at least one to be working from the start. Okay. So I want everything to be on high resolution, let's say, on the playthrough. Well, if that's the case, then I need that to be on from the beginning. Okay. Otherwise, it won't know what it needs to do, and we could run into the issue where we don't have a post process at all. Okay, so we don't want that. So let's first think about how we need to do that. So first is to disable the option of not having any events checked. Okay, so we never want that to be possible. So we need to create this condition so that it doesn't happen. So to do this, the first thing we need to do is remove one of these functions. Let's make a bit more space. We need to remove the function of unchecking. Okay, I'm not sure if, okay, let's do it this way. So I'm just thinking out loud. I'll create 3 conditional variables so that we know if it's checked or not. Okay, so I'll create hi is checked, and we'll create these as booleans. Okay, and we'll create another one. Medium is checked, and one more, and low is checked. Okay, cool. So we've created 3 variables to store a conditional. So we've got a conditional variable here, all 3 of them. So when I click on this state, what do we want it to do? Well, we want it to make sure that this is true, that hi is on, right? So when it's checked, if I check it, it's already checked. Do the same for medium, right? So when I click it, it's checked and on low. Oops, get set rather than just get. Plug these in. Okay, so when I click it, it changes my variable to checked. Okay, all right. So I'll do it slowly so you can keep up with the workflow I'm trying to describe here. So let's make a bit more room. Nice. So here, at this point, when I click it, it will uncheck this and then run the event. So before that, I need to create a condition here. Okay, almost in a way to try and trick Unreal. Okay, so let's put a branch here, and it's going to force this to always be checked. So what happened? So I clicked it, it became checked, obviously, right? But if I click it again, what's going to happen? Well, if I click it again, let me show you in the screen actually. It might make more sense. Let's play. So resolution, high resolution, if I click it, it's checked, right? If I click it again, it shows now unchecked. If I want it to stay checked, then I click it again. There's no option of checking and unchecking. It's always checked. So what do I need to do? I need to create a routine in Unreal to keep it from becoming unchecked. So here's how to do it. So it's checked the first time, a variable's checked at this point, right? The next time we click on it, it will still keep our variable checked. Okay, so it will be true. This is what I've set up. So each time that button is pressed, it will keep this variable in check. So therefore, if this verifies that the variable is checked or it's true when it gets to the branch, so if it verifies it's true, I want it to change the state of my variable to maintain the state of this variable, this high button in checked. So let's take a look at this now. Let's put this here. So I'll keep my high variable as checked. And this means, okay, there we go. Cool. So this means that if this condition here is true, if this is true, that it will keep it as checked. And if this condition is true, okay, if this is checked, it will uncheck it. That is what that's what the widget preset will do. But this is not what I want. Okay, when it's checked and we click it again, we don't want it to give us an option where there's nothing already preset. Okay, if I click it again, it's still checked here. You see that? it will never change. But if I change this, you see what's happening? So there is a way to not have the option of unchecking an option. So one of them has to be always enabled. So what I need to do is I need to repeat this process to all the nodes. Okay, it might sound long-winded, but that's what we need to do. Repeat the process for the high, medium, and low. And the only thing I need to do is change our target. And I'll also need to create a branch. Okay, so this will evaluate the condition, and the condition is what I'm creating. In other words, I've used a trick here basically, so that we can always keep this checked. We're kind of fooling it or forcing it to behave the way we want it to. So when I click the button, this condition will be kept as true. It will never be false. Okay, and this is set up by the click. So it evaluates the condition. It will always be true. If it's always true, it will be checked. Okay, perfect. So I'll push play and we'll test this now. You'll see a lot clearer what I mean. Okay, so look, it never becomes not an option. Okay. But we did notice, didn't we, that at the beginning it starts with no options checked. Okay, and we can't have these unchecked at the beginning. So if I want to edit my screen for it to run, and if I don't change anything, it will always be on high resolution. Then I should have this checked right from the beginning of the game. So we'll do that, okay? What I did here, we'll replicate that on event construct. So let's do this here. So let's select high. And we'll select set checked, state as checked. And so let's start. Putting it in there. And we can call that high resolution. Okay, so high resolution will be checked at the beginning. Nice. So this means that the checkbox will be checked right from the start of the game, right from the moment we push play. So it will already be running in high resolution. So now, you see it now? If I try to uncheck it, it will just move to another one, okay? Or if I select another one, it will move it. Perfect. That's awesome. So there we go. These resolution events, they might seem quite complicated, but when we get a head around it, it makes sense, doesn't it? So if you want to go over these things again, feel free to do so. And you can pause and check and rewind, etc., to just to see what you need to brush up your skills on or become more familiar. But we're in a good place now. So here we have our start and resolution events all working. The sounds and the conditions, and instructions, about, no glitches going on here. Pretty good. Okay, so everything's working properly. A scene is running. I've just turned the sound down on those buttons, by the way, for this demo, but that's all working here, and I'm sure it'd be working on yours. We've got the crosshair doing, so the menus, we've got the crosshair working, so the menu's practically done here, okay? The last thing we'll be creating is the pause menu, which is a variation of what we've already done here, and we'll do that in the next class to finish the chapter.